Good evening and a warm welcome to Straight Talk. Our guest this evening is Professor Kenneth Leung from City University of Hong Kong, where he is Chair Professor of the Department of Chemistry and serves as Director of the State Key Laboratory of Marine Pollution. Professor Leung's research interests include ecotoxicology, marine pollution, biodiversity conservation, and ecological restoration. He has received several awards, including being on the 2018 list of top 100 Asian scientists, and this year, the gold medal of the Asia International Innovative Award. He is also the chairman of the Advisory Council on Food and Environmental Hygiene for our government, and that is why we have invited him to tell us if it is safe to consume imported Japanese seafood. Welcome, Kenny.
Thank you, Eugene.
Professor, as many of us know, that Japan started releasing the treated radioactive water from its damaged Fukushima power plant into the Pacific Ocean about 2 weeks ago. Since then, the question of food safety has attracted worldwide attention. At present, the Hong Kong SAR government has banned import of aquatic products from the 10 prefectures in Japan, and there have been debates whether the safety of eating can be confirmed in Hong Kong. And you being the chairman of the Advisory Council on the Food and Environmental Hygiene, can you tell us what advice did you give the government? And is that the reason why now we have this a seafood ban?
So in Hong Kong, the food safety measure is based on risk assessment or evidence-based. So since the discharge of the nuclear wastewater is a new risk factor, so that's why we have to enhance our safety measure by banning the aquatic products from the 10 prefectures. At the same time, we will do the radioactive monitoring for all imported aquatic products from Japan outside that 10 prefectures. So these are two measures to safeguard our citizens' health. I think this kind of measure is really well supported by our members.
Right. Yeah, Professor, having a good scientific background, I think this is what we want to hear. The viewers want to have a solid background before they make a decision whether they will continue to have Japanese food, whether they feel safe to import the Japanese seafood. So what are the immediate concerns for the safety of seafood or other marine products, as you just said, following the release of just nuclear wastewater? What will the effect to the seafood?
Since the new risk factor is from the discharge of the wastewater into the ocean, then the possible risk to our food product mainly related to aquatic products. That's why the government aimed to try to minimize this risk by prohibiting the food from those 10 prefectures. Okay.
So are you saying that there could be a long-term effect on this radio contamination of the seafood?
You are correct. Since the discharge going to be conducted for more than 30 years, talking about the releasing this partially treated wastewater every minute for more than 30 years, then the volume is huge. It's equivalent to 500 standard swimming pool size. So then even though the low dose condition, but you multiply the volume, the net amount of radionuclides remain high.
Right. Professor, the International Atomic Energy Agency from the United Nations has reported the concentration of tritium, which is the radioactive substance in the nuclear effluent discharged into the ocean by Japan, is lower than expected and poses no risk to the humans, this is what they say. So is there no need for our public to be concerned, especially it is such a low dose, although it's for 30 years?
So according to their report, the IAEA report, they also measure the treated wastewater in terms of the nucleotides inside. They also found, apart from tritium, they also found 6 other radionuclides, including strontium, cesium, iodine, and also carbon-14 radioactive substance. So those are the main concerns because they can remain in the environment for a long, long time. and also they could be accumulated in biota, and then through the food web, eventually there may be biomagnification, end up high concentration in seafood product. If humans consume them, we may have a health hazard.
Right. So you're saying that the IAEA is saying that when it poses no risk to the humans, you don't agree?
So this is talking about more for long term. So in the IAEA report also mentioned that Japanese government should monitor the concentration in seawater, sediment, and biota for long term, so that they can ascertain how the pollutants increase in the environment and whether it will trigger the threshold causing adverse effect.
Right, Professor, you know, when Japan began discharging the nuclear wastewater on the 24th of August, the Hong Kong government immediately banned the import of aquatic products from the 10 Japanese prefectures. Do you think the scope of ban is adequate, or you think it should to extend further than more than 10 prefectures?
So as I mentioned, our government used a risk-based approach. That means we will collect information, scientific data, not just from our own government, but also the neighborhood government, different cities. So if in the coming few years, all these cities with the intelligence telling us that all these seafood products from Japan are safe, then we're going to have a chance to relax the measures. Okay, but on the contrary, if they provide us the data or our own data suggests that the otherwise, then we may tighten the monitoring and also the measures.
But it's just that when you're saying monitoring, we are basically doing a sampling method in Hong Kong. But sampling meaning they don't test every single food produce, but take samples of it. Why can't we go to the water there and test it? Because at the moment, it's all from the Japanese side. Would it be more sensible or more independent, make us more comfortable if we can actually do tests around the waters?
So this is another line of evidence. So we should have a third party to engage in testing the treated wastewater, and also after dilution, the concentration as well. At the same time, we should measure those contaminants of concern in the environment, right, as I mentioned, in sediment, in biota, and also in seawater. That is a good measure to look at the situation. However, since the pollutants being discharged into the environment, this will be a long-term process in terms of bioaccumulation, biomagnification. So there are uncertainties. So to safeguard our citizens' health, it is very important for us to do the measures such as tighten the monitoring. Right. So all the aquatic products from import from Japan to Hong Kong, we will do the subsampling for all batches.
Right. So, Professor, as you know, Hong Kong people love Japanese food, and someone called Japan is basically a second home to many Hong Kong people, and they frequently dine at other Japanese restaurants when they travel to Japan. So should they be concerned about the situation? I mean, this is going to be like dropping a bombshell into everyone. Wow, no more Japanese food. I mean, what do you say?
So I want to assure all the citizens that all the imported Japanese food are safe for consumption in terms of radioactivities. So we shouldn't worry about this. So since we already have the safety measure in place, all the imported food to Hong Kong are safe for consumption.
In that case, if you go to Japan and have Japanese food there, you can't be sure. Is that what you're saying?
So it depends whether you have all the information about where the source of those food.
Right. So, any more suggestion to the viewers? Because, I mean, would the frequency of consuming Japanese food or any type of Japanese food will be more likely to have a chance of contamination?
So just based on some fundamental scientific principles, also apply to other chemical contaminants, not just radionuclides. So our suggestion is we should avoid those products from the top predator, like the big tunas, shark, and those top predator species, since they have a higher chance to accumulate and have a biomagnified concentration of pollutants. So we should eat less and moderately. So try to avoid those main source.
Right, and or reduce frequency of consumption helps as well from a scientific point of view?
Yes, of course. If you only eat once for a while, then the risk is lower.
Yes.
However, if you eat every day, then the chance will be higher.
Right, as you know, as chairman of the Advisory Council on Food and Environmental Hygiene, the government has been putting efforts into ensuring food on our plates are safe. Has any abnormal test result ever been found in recent months?
So far, so good. So we don't detect any abnormal situation.
Right. Well, Professor, let's have a break now, and viewers, stay with us. We will be right back. Thank you for staying with us. And we have Professor Kenneth Leung talking to us about whether it is safe to consume imported Japanese seafood in light of the release of the treated radioactive water from the Fukushima power plant. So, Professor, in the first half, you have told us that we have to be very careful because there's more than tritium in the water. But in Hong Kong, it's very safe because the Hong Kong government is monitoring by sampling that we should be relaxed about having Japanese food in Hong Kong. And actually, Mr. Jia Jin-wan, the Secretary for Environment and Ecology, said he still eats Japanese food and only chooses those products that are proved to be safe. So, from your opinion, with all the government monitoring works, such as they will conduct data analysis and they'll release results to the public in every 1 to 2 months, is that practical and is it efficient?
Yes, I think so. Since we do a lot of sampling and analysis every day, then we have a huge database from now onward. So then I think we should disclose the result to our citizens to make them calm and also feel safe to consume our food.
Do you feel that have all this extra work being done because of Japan releasing the water, the radioactive wastewater, is it costing Hong Kong citizens a lot of money in terms of resources?
Based on the estimation from the government, we spend $10 million more per year for this kind of measures. I think it's well spending because we can safeguard our health. That is far more important than money.
Right. Professor, I mean, you being a scientist, I mean, it's very good privilege that we have you on the show, and I'd like to ask you more about on the marine ecosystem. With this release of the nuclear wastewater, how is this going to affect the actual marine ecosystem, as I mentioned, and the biodiversity in the water there?
So, although the wastewater will be diluted, and then the concentration of tritium will meet the discharge standard, okay? Then we do know that there will be some other radionuclides contaminants within those water. Then they release it day by day to the ocean, and then through the current and gravity, then some of these chemicals will end up into the sediment. And then the marine life will have a chance to contact them and also uptake them through bioaccumulation. And then some of the radionuclides like cesium, strontium, we know that they could be biomagnified through the food web. For instance, in May, there was a fish being found with cesium exceeding the safety limit by 180 times. So this is one example showing that this is, although we discharge in low concentration, then food time and the food web, then maybe one day some fish will have a high concentration in their body.
So, as you mentioned earlier in the first part of the show, having the water being released over the next 30 years with the cumulative effect is quite worrying in terms for the ecosystem, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So, since we'll ask you more questions on this matter because, as you know, there will be wastewater releasing from some other nuclear plants elsewhere in the world. How is it the Fukushima power plant's wastewater different to the other nuclear plants?
This is a very good question. For normally safely operated nuclear plant, they do generate some wastewater from the maintenance. When they do the maintenance, they may detach some parts of the system, release those wastewater. The volume is small, and then secondly, they only contain mainly tritium, unlike the Fukushima nuclear plant, because the water have a direct contact to the reactor, and then they receive over 60 different types of radionuclides in those wastewater. So we're talking about the composition is different, and also the volume is different. And then now the discharge frequency is very different. For normally operated nuclear plant, they only release those wastewater once or twice per year. But now in Fukushima, you release every minute for more than 30 years. So it's a very different ball game.
Right, thank you very much for clarification, because I read on some literature, they're saying that actually around a different nuclear water plant, they do release the wastewater with tritium, and they're saying that tritium level is actually higher than those from the Fukushima. But as you said, it's a completely different ball game altogether, because it's the frequency and the composition as well. So, so what you're saying is that rate of discharge is going to cause a huge shift for the marine ecology and food safety. What can we do to mitigate it? Apart from testing on this side, what else can we do outside?
So I want to add one more concern is that right now, this wastewater treatment system, the advanced liquid processing system in Japan, are still very new. So its performance will be good. And then we shouldn't expect any accidents in the diluted wastewater. However, if you're running the treatment plant for many years, then there will be possible failure in the system because the machine wear and tears, and also machine failures, and even operators' mistakes. Those may result in poor quality of the treated water, leading to more severe pollution. So this is another concern. That's why we have to monitor for longer term. Okay, so you are correct that we do need to keep our eyes on the situation, and then we hope that Japan will allow the IAEA and other third parties to set foot in to do the tests side by side. If those data matching with Japan's Tokyo Electric Power Company's data, then that will regain our confidence. I'm sure the Japan government is also concerned about this, and I'm sure they have been doing measures and protocols. They're trying to manage and mitigate the impact. So do you believe the measures are sufficient to date? So ideally, Japan should keep those treated water within their continent, within their country. So then they can either immobilize them in solid and then store them, or they can put them in their groundwater system or in an artificial lake. Then it won't have a problem to pollute the ocean of the entire world. So this is the best approach. Of course, it will cost money. If we can't do anything, I think then we have to make sure the treatment system working really effective to minimize the impact to the environment. Right.
I mean, we all know that there's a saying, there's many ways to skin a cat. Apart from pouring it in the ocean, there are other ways that you have just mentioned. Maybe you can tell the viewers, for example, if with an accident, something like that happened, what are the options that any country has, apart from treat it and dilute it and pour it in the ocean? Are there any other options as well?
Of course, there are more advanced technology coming up in the future, like electrolysis. But you still require bigger land space to store the water before the treatment. Why the Japan's government really want to get rid of those wastewater? Because they still need to decommission in active way the reactor so that they can solve the problem for long term. Because right now the reactor is still active, will generate 1,000 tons of contaminated water, wastewater every month. So then however, they need a space to decontaminate the plant. So this is a kind of dilemma they are facing. No matter what kind of treatment, they still need space to hold the water and treat the water.
Just now you also mentioned cost is an issue. I also read in some reports actually treating this wastewater after treated and pouring in the ocean is the most economical way. I mean, of course, all countries should be, economical and be optimal. But in your opinion, is that the most optimal result to do this by pouring into the wastewater into the ocean?
If the Japanese government worry about the consequence to their fishermen, to the neighborhood country, I think it's a very smart way to spend more money to keep the wastewater in their nation. Because you have to look at as a whole, holistically in this issue. It's not just a short-term gain, it's more long-term benefit to mankind.
Right. Yeah. Professor, how can we, given this is going to happen, how can we ensure transparency and accurate information dissemination to the public from your point of view?
So I really hope that the Japanese government will allow the third parties to do the tests in Fukushima nuclear power plant side by side with their own team. Then this will help us to regain the confidence on their system.
We're having a last question for you on the show, because Hong Kong and mainland China are the main sort of speaking out on this issue, but other countries have been fairly quiet or they may not be aware. From your point of view, why is it even the US government is not concerned about this discharge of nuclear wastewater into the ocean?
So I think the IAEA is playing the major part to endorse this treatment system. They provide a very detailed analysis in their report, saying that if Japan government does A, B, C, D, E, F, G measures, then the water after dilution should be safe with lower risk. So then if they can follow the book and doing well in the treatment system, then they can minimize the risk. This is everyone want to see. Everyone will be happy to see. So I think if you take this position, then we will say that we should support Japanese to do a good job, so that make sure the impact to the environment and human health would be minimized.
Right, thanks.
So however, we need more data, third-party data, to assure the outcome.
Right, thank you, Professor Leung, for shedding light on the important issue of imported Japanese seafood safety. It is evident that both government agencies and industry stakeholders in Hong Kong are actively working to ensure that the seafood on our plates is safe for consumption. Viewers, I'd like to leave you with a quote from actress Audrey Hepburn: "Water is life, and clean water means health." Have a good evening and see you next week.